My first welding job I landed after trade school, I was getting paid 70 grand a year. Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Shop Talk podcast. I'm your host, Austin Anson. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so in this episode, I just want to do an introduction, a little bit about myself. So, my followers on YouTube will know I run a welding channel. And I try to give advice more on the business side of things, like how to get started, how to find funding, how to handle debt, how to avoid debt, equipment to buy, and stuff like that. And what we're realizing really quick is the videos we talk about, they're not, or the topics we talk about in our videos aren't necessarily welding specific. They actually answer to a broader spectrum of like blue collar jobs. So that's kind of the idea for this podcast. We're gonna pick some topics, break them down, talk about them. This will be easier for you guys to listen to while you're at work. Either you're just getting started with your own stuff, your 9 to 5 job, whatever. The other thing is, I want to get in touch with some other YouTubers and podcast people and kind of, hear how they started, because that's not necessarily something we get to see all the time, and really open you guys up to some new and creative ideas. Because the only thing I'm married to is my wife. The advice I give today might not be the advice I give a year from now. Someone can change my mind, show me a better way to do it. I'm very open to learning. Um, but so a background on in me. Currently, it's 2022. I started welding in 2000. I think it was 2012. Um, I grew up on a farm. My dad was a truck driver. Needless to say, like, he wasn't a welder. He wasn't certified or anything, but like so many of us, he just bought a welder and I believe taught himself. And it got to a point where he was just busy doing stuff. So he let me take it over. And shortly, he kind of decided that, I don't know, I guess I had an act for it. I was catching on pretty quick. And I liked putting stuff together. I wasn't getting bored. So when I got out of school, um, I was off to college, and he was the only person who really told me, hey, maybe you don't have to go to college. I think you could have a career in welding and make good money. Um, but I heard the polar opposite from like teachers and everyone at school. Um, I took a trade program in high school, 2 year, and I had a teacher telling me that that was a waste of time. Um, I was never going to be anything working trades. Trades are for bums who, you know, can't find jobs. That stereotype, it's what people do when they get out of prison. So that was kind of off putting to me. So I ended up going through the trade program. It was actually a construction program. And, I fell in love with it. I love working with my hands. Growing up on the farm, I'm just accustomed to that lifestyle, I guess. But my teachers were telling me I wasn't going to be anything unless I had a degree. So I did a year of school after high school, did a year of college, I should say. And like so many people, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I felt like I was just wasting time and money. So I said, well, you know what? I talked to a few people who were welders, and they were making more money than the teachers were making, who were telling me I wasn't going to be anything. So that's what I did. I jumped ships and I took another year at a trade school, got my certifications. Um, my first welding job I landed after trade school, I was getting paid 70 grand a year. And man, when I saw them first paychecks, I thought back and I said, man, I'd like to go show these to that teacher, because holy cow. Um, Now, I'm not saying it was easy. I worked for it. It was I knew coming on when I signed with the company that they were working a lot of hours and a lot of days. I worked 7 months straight. Uh, I mean, Sunday through Sunday. I think the only days I had 3 days off. I had Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. Those were it. Those were the 3 days. Um, so I was, killing it on double time, and after about a month, I decided, this isn't sustainable for, 40, 50 years, whatever, my work career is. So about a month in, I started putting away pennies because I knew I wanted to do my own thing. My grandparents were self-employed. My parents were self-employed. Um, my brothers were self-employed. It was just the world I grew up in. We didn't go to traditional 9 to 5 jobs. Um, my dad would joke and say he worked 5 to 9. But so that's what I did. I started saving my pennies. I started buying welding equipment. Um, because I fell in love with YouTube and watching guys like Welding Tricks and Tips and Chucky 2009 and all those. That's what I wanted to do, so I started buying welding equipment. Eventually, I left that job and I started making bulletproof barriers for a company. It was 40 hours a week and weekends off. So on weekends when we didn't have anything to do, I just started doing odd jobs. My grandpa owned a grocery store, so he knew a ton of people in the community. And anytime a farmer was coming or something, and they would talk about stuff being broke, yada yada yada, he'd say, "Ah, well, hold on, let me get you my grandson's number." And started doing little jobs like that, and things were pretty good. Um, I think I worked for 3 years, just weekend warrior type before I finally went out on my own. Uh, and for those of my YouTube viewers, you probably remember if you've been watching long enough. Uh, I struck out to be self-employed in November of 2019. I got married to my beautiful wife in June of 2019, and that November, between that time, we relocated across the state, and I struck out on my own. And then everyone knows what happened with the pandemic and everything. So a lot of the work I had lined up, I didn't get to work because at the start of the pandemic, everybody was, worried, and I blew through a lot of my savings that I had, and we'll talk about that in a later podcast. But I blew through a lot of my savings, and then summer kind of rolled around, and we kind of figured out, how we were going to live in this weird time, being the pandemic. And I was starting to get work and starting to get work, and I don't even. It was like mid to late spring of 2020. I had a guy hit my truck. He kind of just turned in front of me. He was, I don't know if he's having road rage or what. And there ended up being an insurance issue, so I didn't get my truck fixed right away, and I was still completely mobile. So I had yet another downturn, and I started blowing through the money, just paying my bills and everything that I had just saved up in that last 6 months of working. Um, but knock on wood, we got the truck cleared up, fixed up, and we've been running pretty solid ever since. So right now, my big thing is I fix farmers, heavy equipment operators, equipment or stuff, and then I also work for a company who flip houses, and they're super laid back, and I absolutely love working with them because they are just great people. But they flip houses and commercial properties, and I'll do handrails and guardrails or anything like that. But in my slow times, because I have that construction trades background, um, I can go in and just do general labor, replace doors, replace windows, demos, put in kitchens, paint, put in floors, whatever's really needed. And it just so happened that a close personal friend of our families was the guy who paints for all these people. So he invited me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come over and work this winter while things are slow? Because when it gets like 10 degrees outside, negative 10 degrees, Um, there's not a lot of mobile welding going on, and we are kind of starting to furnish a shop to kind of get through our slow times. But I was able to go work with them, build a relationship up, and our income's just skyrocketed from there. And I've kind of always done that ever since I've went on my own. Just worked like different odd jobs. Um, I never really say I work for people, but I kind of do. But it's like just when I have time. Like um, farmers that I work for will call me, "Hey, are you busy? Because we could use help. Throwing hay or turning a field." Oh yeah, I'm slow right now. Sure, I'll come do that to make a little money. Or um, hey, can you cut grass or can you run a skid steer or whatever? And I'm not too proud to do any of those things. Um, some people argue that if you're going to be a welder, that's what you should just do. My thought is, and my oldest brother taught me this, you know, you just do what you got to do to get your bills paid and take care of your family. Uh, bar that, when welding's good, weld, or when whatever's good, do that. When it's not good, go do something to make up for the slow times. Because if you just sit around for your slow times, and I learned this, you just start running through your money. So uh, I'm gonna keep this intro, pretty short. We're about 11 minutes right now. Like I said, I got a pretty good background in different like blue collar jobs. The main one being welding and fabricating. So my goal for this channel is to help you guys go out and start like your own business and stuff. I like business. I like talking about it. I like crunching numbers. So we're gonna do a little bit of that. These next few podcasts, I will probably be running solo just to kind of run myself through like this new voice recording software or audio recording software, and getting it uploaded to YouTube and different podcast platforms. So bear with me on that. I do want to have people on the show sooner rather than later. I'm hoping before we do 10 episodes, but I'm going to try and keep an episode to about 20 minutes. So if you want, go ahead and subscribe to me on YouTube and follow me. I did this backwards. I really should have figured out where I was going to upload this, but we'll get towards that on the next video. Anyways, guys, thanks for giving it a listen. If you have anything you want to, talk to on the podcast, if you want to be on the show, anything like that, you can comment or you can email me at ansonswelding@gmail.com. That's ANSONSWELDING @gmail.com. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode. Oh, and I'm gonna close out the show the same way I close out my welding videos. And I'll give a little background because not everyone listening to this podcast might come from a welding background. In my trade school, my instructor always told, his name was Jason, he always told us, if you're not burning, you're not learning. What that means, if we weren't burning rod, we weren't learning how to weld. So when I say you're not burning, you're not learning, if you're not actively trying to better yourself in whatever career you're doing, you're not learning that career, you're not getting better at that career, you're not progressing, you're just sitting still or falling behind. So subscribe to my channel, and remember, guys, if you're not burning, you're not learning.